What's going on, everybody? Jared Barnes here, back with another episode of the Jared Barnes Show. Today is Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. What a year it's been. I got a year in review episode probably coming out. I'm shooting for New Year's Eve. It'll be my third episode this week, so I'm excited. But if you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for listening. I completely appreciate you. Love you guys. And, if you listen to this episode, you like it, maybe share it with a friend. I would greatly appreciate that. Again, just do anything that you know how to help a podcast grow. You get it. I'm not going to even walk you through it. But thank you for choosing me. There's so many other great sports shows out there, and it means a lot that you would choose me. Now, today's Takeaway Tuesday, and you know what that means. I'm going to give you 2 takeaways from every single NFL game that happened this weekend. Excited to get into it. We'll start with the first game of Week 16, the Vikings versus the Saints. And I'll tell you what, for the Saints to do anything in the playoffs, Alvin Kamara is going to have to carry them. Drew Brees' arm is kind of there. But then again, they're probably not going to get home field advantage. And if they have to go to Lambeau, Kamara is going to have to carry them. And if you looked at that Packers run defense, I don't know if Kamara is going to be able to do much versus the Packers. That's going to be an interesting matchup if it happens. And if the Saints, and here's my other takeaway, if the Saints don't get home field, they can't go to the Super Bowl. That's just completely how I feel. The second game of the weekend, the Buccaneers versus the Lions. And if you watch this game, you know that if the Bucs are on, they are unstoppable. Man, did they have a day. They feasted versus the Lions. And we know that Lions secondary is bad, but my goodness, did they feast. What a game they had. And maybe this was the get-back game that turns them back on and they get hot here at the right time and make a run because they have the talent to do so. And I think the coaching is good enough in Tampa Bay. The other takeaway from that game is the Lions just need to blow it up. They need to completely restart. I think it's time. Stafford's done enough for your franchise, but you guys clearly can't get anything done with him. Yeah, he got injured, but still. Nothing's going to change until they completely blow it up and try it again. And that's a shame because what a career that's of Stafford that you wasted. I mean, you just completely wasted a guy's career. And that's a shame. The next game after that was the 49ers versus the Cardinals. It was played pretty much strictly on Amazon Prime. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, which, at this point, I don't know how you wouldn't. I don't, but I watched it on the NFL Fantasy app, and that app is absolutely clutch. Trust me, it is just clutch. Watch a lot of football through that app. It's insane. I love that app with a passion. But my number one takeaway from that game is if Kyler can't run, they can't win. If you force him to be in the pocket, the 49ers finally figured out how to beat them. And it's going to be a tough road for the Cardinals at this point because that was the one team in the division that had the biggest struggles against you. And they figured him out now. And that's not bad. And the other takeaway I have from this game is, it's week 17 now and I still don't know what to think of the Cardinals. If they don't have Hopkins on and going, that offense stinks. And it makes no sense because there's talent and Kyler's a good quarterback. But like I said, if you force him to stay in the pocket, they can't win because he's small, and I don't think he can see over the offensive line and the big defensive pass rushes that are coming his way. And short quarterbacks have had that problem recently. I think Baker, you've seen that with Baker. When you force him to stay in the pocket, he struggles. And then I think Tua is having that issue as well in the NFL. And that's kind of been his problem, why he doesn't really throw it downfield either. I don't know how Brees has done it for so long. It's really cool and amazing, but still, it's just weird. The next game after this of the weekend was the Dolphins versus the Raiders. What a game that one was. The last 5 minutes of that game was absolutely electric. I was watching that game and the Liberty and Coastal Carolina game at the same time, and wow, what great football that was. Now, my first takeaway from this game is that if the Dolphins want to make sure they make the playoffs, they have to ride with Fitz. And I know Brian Flores says that Tua is starting, but that kind of leads into my second takeaway. The Dolphins don't trust Tua, and that's my second takeaway. And I think part of it was they wanted to develop Tua this year, and they see what they have in him. They see a guy with a lot of potential, but he, has a lot of room to grow. And he he has a lot of growth that still needs to be done, playing-wise. So I think Fitz will probably be back in Miami next year to help with that process. And Fitz has done so much with him. But I think it's going to kind of hurt the development of Tua if you keep pulling him out in these key situations. Like, you got to give him the chance to do it. And it doesn't seem like the Dolphins are willing to do that. They just kind of jump right back into Fitz because they don't want to lose. And they know Fitz will give them the win. And he did that with that miraculously beautiful throw that he had when he had a hand in his face, literally in his face mask, just like this, in his face. And he delivered an absolute dime. What a throw that was. The next game after this, the Colts versus the Steelers. My number one takeaway from this game is the Colts should lean on Jonathan Taylor even more. It felt like the Indianapolis Colts did not even use him in the second half, and it showed because they struggled. If they would have kept running the ball, kind of ground and pound that game out and ran out the clock, the Steelers would have had no time. They wouldn't have. And Jonathan Taylor, I don't know why he's not getting 25 to 30 touches a game at this point. He's clearly the best running back you have. He's clearly one of your better offensive weapons. Get the ball in his hands as much as possible. I don't understand the Colts. One half they're very good, and then the next half they're very bad. And it's been like that all season, and that's one of the reasons I don't know what to make of the Colts right now. And then my number two takeaway in this game is the Steelers just need to let Ben call plays all the time. In the first half, Randy Fichtner was calling plays, and Ben said that he didn't say Darius Leonard, but he said that the Colts were just calling out their plays, and they knew what they were doing 100%. And at halftime, they made the adjustment, and Ben started writing up and calling plays that weren't in the playbook, stuff that they hadn't run all year, stuff that some of these guys had never seen before. And it was just playground football, and Ben led them to a win. And that makes me think that Ben should just be calling the plays at all times. Randy Fichtner is a bad offensive coordinator. We know that. Any Steelers fan knows that. I'm a Steelers fan. I know that. And, I think it's time for him to go. But Ben should just continue to call plays. That's the best chance the Steelers offense has of winning, because when he started calling plays, he started throwing the ball downfield. So that's kind of how I feel about that. The next game after this is the Browns versus the Jets. What a headache this game was. Leading into it, the Browns wide receiver room, pretty much all of them got COVID. Not got COVID, but were high contact tracers, I guess. So they were all out. And the Browns went into this game with pretty much no pass catchers that ever had any reps for them. One of the guys that was starting was Marvin Hall, who was playing for Detroit back on Thanksgiving and then got cut afterwards. So that tells you everything you need to know about the Browns wide receiver core. So just due to that, considering how shorthanded the Browns were, they weren't playing with any of their wide receivers that never practiced with them. It's crazy that they had to have a walkthrough in a parking garage prior to the game just to get those wide receivers up to speed, and it didn't really help. So this game really doesn't change how I feel about the Browns. I still like them. I think they're a good team still, and I still believe in Baker as the franchise guy for them. But they made it hard on themselves now to, make the playoffs because, they have to win now. They have to win. If they would have won this game, maybe they don't have to win. Maybe they clinch, but now they have to win, and then other stuff might need to happen for them to make it, and that's just tough. And, my second takeaway from this game, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but the Jets have looked good as of late. The last couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, they've just looked very, very good. They get 2 straight wins back to back. Would Joe Douglas actually have the audacity to keep Adam Gase around? Let's be real. Last year, around this time of the year, they got hot. The Jets were playing very well around this time of the year last year. It's like they figured it out. And then COVID came in and kind of bit the team in the butt, kind of hurt them a lot. And they weren't really able to, get everybody up to speed. They have a young team, so it was kind of tough. And now they're starting to play very, very well. Have 2 wins against 2 teams that are going to be in the playoffs. Joe Douglas, are you actually going to keep Adam Gase? Should you? It's a weird question right now. It's a weird question, and it honestly feels like Adam Gase might have a chance of still remaining in New York for next year, which is crazy to think after all the talk about him not being there, that he might end up there. That'd be wild. The next game after that is the Falcons versus the Chiefs. And, the Chiefs have seemed half interested in games almost all year, and they just still continue to win. It's weird. It's almost like they've been focusing on just the playoffs since like week 8. And they still continue to win games, and it drives me nuts because I want to see a team that actually seems to care, and the Chiefs just don't seem to care. And I think that might hurt them going into the playoffs, honestly. I hope it doesn't because the Chiefs team is so good, but if the Bills end up beating them because of this, I won't be shocked. And my next takeaway in this game is Falcons fans. Y'all deserve better. I mean, it's a shame. It is a shame. That's all I got to say. The next game after this is the Bears versus the Jaguars. And, I didn't think I'd be saying this at all this year, but, Mitch actually looks like he's a good quarterback and that he's good at football. I know he just played the Jaguars, and I know the Jaguars didn't want to win this game, but still, over the last couple weeks, Mitchell Trubisky has been very, very good. And I have been thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed with Mitch. They have like the best offense heading into the last couple weeks. And heading into the playoffs, they're probably going to end up making the playoffs. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think now, if you're the Bears, you have to bring back Mitch, right? As well as he's played over the last couple weeks, I think you have to bring him back. It's not like you're going to have to pay him all that much. So, yeah, bring him back. Why not? And my second takeaway is to the Jaguars. And Jaguars fans, congratulations on officially landing Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville, you deserve this. It's about time you guys get a franchise guy. You guys locked up the number 1 pick, and that gives you pretty much Trevor Lawrence is dead to rights to your franchise unless they decide to pass on him. So, best of luck to you, Jaguars fans. And Trevor, I hope you look good in teal. Next game after this was Giants versus Ravens, though. Lamar's back to his MVP form, and that's scary because the Ravens look like a dangerous wildcard team and a team you wouldn't want to play heading into playoffs. They look good. They seem like they're back to what they were last year. If they are, man, that's a team you don't want to play in the playoffs, I'll tell you that. Moving on, though, Bengals versus Titans, a game that really nobody cared about this weekend, but a game that shocked me personally. And the Bengals, they're finishing strong this season, which is good for Zach Taylor going down the stretch. And the second takeaway that I have in this game is if J.J. Watts speaks, you better listen. He clearly has problems with guys on that team, and he's clearly unhappy. If J.J. wants to leave this offseason, I will not be surprised. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. He wants to win a championship, and it doesn't seem like that organization wants to win a championship, and that's a shame. Next game after this was Broncos versus Chargers, another game that unless you were fans of the teams, nobody really cared because these teams are way out of the playoffs. But, my first takeaway in this game is, I don't know about how Chargers fans feel, but I don't think the Chargers should fire Anthony Lynn. I like the chemistry that Justin Herbert has with his quarterback coach. And I don't think that should be broken up. The Chargers QB coach is Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton is the former XFL Defenders head coach. Pep Hamilton also coached Andrew Luck back when he was with the Colts. He helped kind of groom him in his early beginnings in the league. Pep Hamilton's a good coach. Anthony Lynn, whether or not you believe in him or not, I mean, I don't fully believe in him, but I don't want them to fire Anthony Lynn partly because I don't want them to possibly hinder the growth of Justin Herbert because a new staff is definitely probably going to want to bring in their own quarterback coach, and I doubt that quarterback coach is going to be Pep Hamilton. So I don't think the Chargers have played bad as of late. He's been conservative, yes, because he knows this year is about developing the quarterback and developing the guy. He doesn't want to rush it at all, and I don't know if I blame him, but maybe his job was put on the line because of it, but he might finish 6-10, 7-9, so maybe not, but who knows. And my next takeaway from this game is about the Broncos, and I feel this way, and I mention it later in the episode with my brother when I bring him on, but the Broncos should bring in somebody to challenge Drew Lock this offseason. I think there was a massive problem just kind of letting Drew Lock have the job and letting him walk in there. He has more confidence than anybody I've ever seen of in my entire life, and he hasn't even played all that great this year. So I think they need to bring in somebody to challenge him for sure, just to kind of, show him that, hey, I mean, we might think you're the guy, and you could be the guy. Don't get your head too big, man. The next game after this, Panthers versus Washington. I love the Carolina Panthers. That's all I want to say. I've mentioned it so many times. I love what they're doing. I love everything they're building down there. I think they're the team of the future in the NFC South. Curtis Samuel has become a legit weapon for them. And I'll talk about it later in the episode as well, but my second takeaway in this game is, will this be the last time Dwayne Haskins has any significant time as a quarterback? And that would be a shame to say, but it could very well be. The next game after that is the Eagles versus the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy is finally proving why the Cowboys hired him as a head coach. He has that team with a chance to win the division. Yeah, they might be 7-9 when they win it, but they have a chance. And nobody thought after Dak's injury that they'd even be close to having a chance to win the division. And the fact that they do have a chance just tells you how bad that division is. My second takeaway from this, and I've gotten a lot of hate from this over a couple different apps. I use this new app called SportsMe, and I said on there that I think Hurts is the future in Philly, and I got attacked by people. But I think Hurts is the future in Philly. I don't think Carson Wentz is the guy anymore in Philly. I think they deserve to be in an open competition, but I think Hurts should be the favorite, and Hurts should be the number one guy going in. Hurts will be the number one guy going out. That's the only way I know how to feel about it. I don't like Carson Wentz all that much anymore. I don't believe in him. Next game after this, Rams versus the Seahawks. And, the Rams just kind of live and die by how Jared Goff is feeling. And that's just weird, because if Jared Goff ain't about it that day, Jared Goff just ain't going to be about it. He ain't going to play very well. And he does it week in and week out. He either plays very good or very bad. And it just seems like Jared Goff is, he ain't feeling it today, so he's not going to play all that great. It's just it's a weird dynamic they have. But he broke his wrist now, and he's going to be out for sure. So that's bad for the Rams going into the playoffs here. Second takeaway from this game is the Rams still haven't made me believe that they are contenders yet this year. Their defense is getting better. Their offense has seemingly got worse over the last 2 months. So I don't know what to think about them. But I've already said that multiple times this year and before the season kicked off that they were my most overrated team coming into this season in the NFL. And I stick by that decision to say that. Titans versus Packers. The Titans can't win when it matters without Henry being successful. In the cold weather, Tannehill can't throw the ball. Tannehill can't move them unless Derrick Henry's running the football. The Titans' offensive line cannot truly pass protect. If they get behind, they need to be able to run the ball and use play action and stuff like that. So the Titans are not true contenders in the AFC. And the Packers will rep the NFC in the Super Bowl. And if they get home field and Rodgers is MVP. That's my second takeaway from this game. Rodgers deserves MVP. He should be MVP. And if they give it to somebody else, it's a shame. And the last reaction and takeaways that I have is from the game that was played just last night. And it was the absolute thrashing of the Patriots. And I did not expect such a dominant performance from the Bills. And this is the game here that makes me think that the Bills can go on and win the AFC. We talk about it later in the episode, me and my brother, on who we think is going to win the Super Bowl and who we think could be there. But the Bills are one of those teams that we think could be there. And the Bills, they officially took over the AFC tonight. They showed that this is their division for the future. And they're going to be the ones that determine otherwise. And they're very good. They looked very, very good tonight. So good. The Bills are the only team that can take out the Chiefs, is my second takeaway. And they might already be just as good, if not better. I think they're a hotter team for sure. But that's just kind of how I feel. Anyways, those are my takeaways from this weekend's NFL games. Here in the next couple minutes, you'll hear me and my brother talk. So I hope you enjoy that conversation. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back. All right, everybody, I'm back. And brought a guest in with me, my brother. Say what's up. He's been on the podcast before. He hasn't been. I don't think he's been on Just You. I think we made a couple videos together, but on Just You. So, welcome to the first time on the podcast, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we got a couple, like 2 different topics we want to talk about today, and we have to talk about the big one for sure. Dwayne Haskins. He got waived, and Ron Rivera made it clear that it's a move that benefits both sides. Rivera had this to say. He said, "This afternoon I met with Dwayne and informed him that we would be releasing him." Rivera said that in the statement today. He said that, "I told him that I believe it benefits both parties that we go our separate ways. We want to thank Dwayne for his contributions these last 2 seasons and we wish him well moving forward."
I don't think he contributed enough, but when you got Kyle Allen taking your job.
I mean, yeah, it was a move that I think did benefit both sides. I think this is going to be a move that helps Haskins grow up a little bit. He's been wildly immature in his last 2 years in Washington. He hasn't really shown a lot on the field, and not enough to where you would be like, "Oh, this guy was a former first-round pick." No, he hasn't showed enough of that, and it's a shame because a lot of talent was wasted. But hopefully, this is the moment in his career that kind of flips his direction and puts him back on the right path.
I think it hit him, especially in the tweet that he made. He said about how he takes full responsibility of not meeting the standards as an NFL quarterback. Not only that, he didn't make the standards off the field he could have made, and he's sad that he has to leave Washington, but that's the team he grew up rooting for. That's like anybody's dream, but when you don't meet the standards on and off the field, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, so the question that we have to raise here is, what is going to be next for him? 2 years ago, this guy was a Heisman finalist and looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He played fantastic in the Rose Bowl. And he ended up getting drafted in the first round in the top 15. I think he was the 15th pick.
He was 15, yeah.
And now he looks like he's a first-round bust. He has many off-the-field issues, just like he has on-the-field ones. There's a lot of problems that come with Haskins. Is he going to be worth the time and investment? That is the big question. I say it's definitely worth looking into because he has a lot of potential.
But you're not bringing him in as a starter, though.
No,
obviously that's not what you're looking for out of him. You're gonna look for a guy to grow second, third string under a good QB that's maybe coming to his final years. That's what you're looking for in a guy like him, especially off the field, not even just football off the field, learning. The biggest thing is the playbook, film. I mean, when he doesn't know what he's doing on the field, you can't trust him. So, and that's what happened in Washington for sure.
And you can definitely see that in the landing spots here that are projected by CBS Sports and Yahoo. What you just said, JT, you definitely don't want to bring him in to be a starter. Steelers top both CBS Sports and Yahoo's list as best potential landing spots for Dwayne Haskins. Like you said, you're not bringing him in to be a starter. You want to mold him into being a backup quarterback. Steelers have questionable backups. They have Mason Rudolph. He hasn't really showed enough in the games that he's had, and he's had quite the opportunity.
He has a lot of games under his belt. Like last season, not only him and Duck Hodges, who's now on their practice squad,
yes.
But he had a big chance, and I just don't think he's the guy next up under Big Ben. So you got to bring somebody in before Big Ben's gone to teach.
No, Rudolph is a quality backup. I don't think he's ever going to be a consistent starter in the league, but he definitely showed last year for the Steelers that he's worth keeping around for at least a while. He can win you games if needed, but
he's dependable for sure. But you can't take him through a whole 16-game season and expect playoffs out of him.
Now, and with the low, I guess it's not low risk, high reward, because I guess it could be low risk, high reward with Haskins because there's so much potential there. The problem is, can you keep him in line? And Tomlin has a great track record of doing so. You look at Antonio Brown. He kept Antonio Brown in line for so many years and kept him just enough in line to where he was getting great production out of him on the field. And then it got to a tipping point where Antonio Brown just snapped, and you could no longer continue to carry that weight of trying to keep him level-headed. And it wasn't worth it for the Steelers anymore, and they cut loose at the perfect time. As you can see, Antonio Brown's career just absolutely tanked, and now he's back at the Bucs.
I really hope he does well. But back to Dwayne Haskins, like, the biggest thing is he could do so much for a team. He has so much potential. He's a good player. He just needs to make sure that he fixes himself off the field and does what he needs to do. And that's just the biggest thing with him. The Steelers would be a good fit. Going to number 2, CBS Sports has him going to the Rams, Yahoo to the Colts. Both understandable, but the Rams not as much. I think they got their guy in Jared Goff. I just don't think he's a career guy.
But when you look at the Rams' quarterback depth behind Jared Goff, you have John Wolford.
I don't even know who John Wolford is. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
He was an, I believe, AAF quarterback, and that is their best backup right now. I think it's the only backup on their roster. So bringing in a guy like Haskins and molding him, and it especially makes sense because of the offensive coordinator that is currently in Los Angeles. I don't know if you know this, but the offensive coordinator that is currently in Los Angeles was Dwayne Haskins, offensive coordinator in Washington in 2019. Haskins showed significant improvement down the stretch the end of last season for Washington. So that is why I think CBS Sports has that as number 2. I think Yahoo has the Colts at number 2 because of the quarterback situation in Indy. Jacoby Brissett. He's in his last year of his contract.
A lot of money that they've put on Jacoby Brissett. Good quarterback. I think he could be their career guy, but Phillip Rivers is getting up there, even though they signed him late in his career. He's just not going to be able to last forever for them. So, and they know that. So Dwayne Haskins, I think, would be a good fit for the Colts, especially more than the Rams.
Now the Colts do have Jacob Eason. That is,
I just don't think he'll ever be.
I don't
He'll never
know
pan
either.
out to a career quarterback, but I can't say
I
that
like
yet.
Jacob Eason. It's too early to say that. We haven't seen him play, but that would be an interesting fit. At number 3 on the list, CBS Sports has the Seahawks. Now the Seahawks quarterback depth consists of, we clearly have Russ, who everybody knows how I feel about the Seahawks and Russ. Not a huge fan of the Seahawks. Russ is a good quarterback. Not my favorite, but he's a good quarterback.
Listen, he's a good quarterback, and he's their career guy. There's no doubt about it. But once he hits that point in his career where he's not going to be able to do it, he's not going to be able to do it whatsoever. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
You absolutely hate the Seahawks, don't you?
I hate the Seahawks with a passion, man.
Okay, and behind Russell Wilson is Geno Smith. Geno Smith has proven he can be a quarterback in this league, but just not a starter.
Not a starter.
Not a starter.
No way. The Jets, I mean, they took a risk with him, and he didn't pay off.
And you can clearly see down this list that all of these teams, I mean, Yahoo has a couple cool options. I mean, in CBS Sports they have only four teams.
In my
the
opinion,
Titans were next, and that would be an intriguing one.
The only one that's literal though is the Steelers. I just don't. I mean, the Titans maybe, but the Rams and Seahawks, obviously backup quarterbacks. They got their career guys, in my opinion. Mainly the Seahawks out of that, but Yahoo with number 3 has the Patriots, and
I don't see it.
It looks like the Patriots just want to bring anybody in at quarterback because somebody's got to be better than what Cam Newton's done this season. Jared Stidham, not a bad guy, but
not it.
I have
Brian Hoyer's not it.
Yeah, Brian Hoyer's definitely not it.
At number 4 on the Yahoo list, they have the Denver Broncos. I think it'd be cool, but it's also not going to be the guy that's going to push Drew Lock. I think they need to bring in a veteran to push Drew. They need to bring in a veteran that's going to help Drew get better because I think Drew can be the guy in Denver.
I love Drew.
Drew has the confidence unlike any other quarterback I've ever seen. Even when he goes out, he could go out and throw 4 interceptions. He almost has a Jameis Winston type confidence. He'll go out and throw 4 interceptions. He'll go out and throw 4 more and not care. Yeah. Which is kind of concerning.
He just needs he needs an ego check right now, especially like what he's done this year. I mean, they need something better, obviously, but he could be the guy that they want him to be if he gets a push.
Yeah, I still believe in him. And at number 5 on the Yahoo list, the last team they have is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bringing him down there, let Brady teach him the ropes. Maybe if you bring him down, you want to make sure Antonio Brown's not on the team because they're going to... Hey, you know how Antonio Brown is. Antonio Brown, you give him one other guy to party with, there's probably a good chance that they're both going to end up at the strip club and both end up in massive trouble.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping Antonio Brown changes, and I'm hoping that Dwayne Haskins changes as well. But you combine those two, and I'm just not sure how it would work.
I think this is going to help Dwayne Haskins grow up because he's still a kid.
Yeah, I mean, we can't talk because I'm 20 years old and you're 17, so...
I'm 16.
Didn't even know your age.
It's fine. Hey, listen. Honestly, I would like to see Dwayne Haskins go down there because, I mean, look, Jacoby Brissett, I mean, I think he was a great third string for the Patriots. Then you got Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, those guys learned under Tom Brady, and look how great they are. I think they're good quarterbacks for being backups. And Jimmy Garoppolo went to be the starter at the 49ers.
That's an easy step.
I mean, that was the best. Looking back on it, in my opinion, that was a great trio of quarterbacks that they had up in New England. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, so we both agree that we think the best option for Dwayne Haskins, actually, I wasn't expecting you to agree with me here, but we both kind of feel like it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, okay. I mean, Pittsburgh, they got they don't have a career guy. Obviously, I think they should draft somebody instead of bringing in Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins,
yeah, but if
I don't think he'd fit the offense for Pittsburgh. But in my opinion, every single NFL team needs to open their horizons and change an offense for a quarterback because that's the type of world we live in now.
Yep.
I mean, you got Lamar Jackson, mobile quarterback. I think everybody needs to go mobile.
I think the Steelers' offense actually kind of fits.
I mean, I think Dwayne Haskins is a little more athletic than Big Ben would be, but I think he can make some plays.
I mean, I think the offense actually kind of fits.
Big Ben's old.
Yeah, he's old.
He's not athletic.
I like Big Ben still, though.
Yeah. I mean, but Dwayne Haskins, he could do some damage with the wide receivers in Pittsburgh, but the thing is, Big Ben, I still think he's got this year. If Big Ben persists and he can make a good playoff run here, maybe even Super Bowl run, I mean, I think he's got next year in him. I don't know about after that, but I mean, it would be great to have somebody come in and learn from Big Ben, especially somebody like Dwayne Haskins, a good quarterback that, you know, who's not gonna hurt your team per se as long as he keeps everything in check. And like Jared said, Mike Tomlin knows how to keep somebody in check because he did have Antonio Brown. I mean,
so it's going to be interesting. So I'm glad we kind of got, we wish Haskins the best, both of us. He's got massive potential. And we hope that this turns his career around. This is the moment that turns him into a much better player and a much better man.
Because this is a make or break for him, in my opinion. I know he's young in his career, but I think this is the moment that's going to define him for the rest of his career.
You don't see teams move on from a first round pick that quickly.
Yeah.
But Rivera wants people to know that this is his team and it's going to be done his way.
It's business.
Or the highway.
It's business, baby.
It's business. But our next thing that we want to talk about, earlier in the year when I had JT on, I had him on with a couple of
my football buddies.
Yeah, and
friends.
My cousin John was on and Sam, pretty much another brother to me. We were all on and we talked and we had long, extensive conversations about many different things. And one of those things was who we would rather have, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields.
I'm going to take over right here.
No.
I want to apologize, and I think he wants to do the same. Justin Fields, great quarterback. We said we'd take Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence. I retract my statement. I know the other two do that aren't here right now, and Jared can speak for himself. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence.
we were all four wrong because we all picked Justin Fields.
We were
and
wrong.
Here was my thought process on that whole thing. We're coming off of a year in the NFL where we see a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson just absolutely dominate. We're coming off, of a college season where Justin Fields throws like 50 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Which is...
Where Trevor Lawrence kind of struggled at the beginning of the year. And, you're looking at it, you're like, oh, if Justin Fields comes out and does this again, there's no way that Justin Fields isn't the number 1 overall draft pick. He did not do that, partly because of, he had a much shortened season. Much shorter season than everybody else. COVID kind of hurt him. His draft stock, in my opinion, still hasn't slid. I think he's still the number 2 quarterback in this draft.
Or number 3. It's debatable.
It's debatable, but I think he's number 2, and I really like Zach Wilson, but I would still put Justin Fields.
Rich kid, snobby.
I don't know if that's true though.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is.
But nobody was talking about Zach Wilson back in September.
Yeah, but after I watched the game versus Coastal Carolina, I get that Coastal Carolina was a hard-nosed team, and their defense wanted to come out and make a statement, but I just didn't think he played as well as he could have because they could have had a way better game, and I think they could have handled that game, but they didn't. They just didn't, and Coastal Carolina came out on top. He was taking a beating, though, that night. There's no doubt about it.
He has no offensive line. That's why, and he's going to get drafted to a bad team, Zach Wilson. If he doesn't have an offensive line, he showed that he's going to struggle. Just like Justin Fields. He's kind of struggled this year because his offensive line is not all that great.
And he's battled with injuries. Through this year, his thumb has nagged him.
Couple nagging injuries, yes, have hurt him. He's still just as athletic as he ever was. But Trevor Lawrence is just on another... It seems like he's on another playing field than everybody else. And so congratulations to the Jaguars on getting the franchise guy, because they did end up with the number 1 overall pick, and Trevor Lawrence looks like he should be that guy that's taken number 1. Now, you had an intriguing conversation point on our ride home after we went out and got the nacho fries at Taco Bell because those things slap. But
listen, I just think
we both like Gardner Minshew. Right?
I love Gardner Minshew. Okay. I think he could be the guy. I don't know about for the complete future. I think you could hold off because obviously the Jaguars have been bad for so long. They had one good year. That was off a whim and a prayer. I mean, listen, I think they're so bad at this point.
You can't pass on a guy like Trevor Lawrence.
You can't pass on a guy like Trevor Lawrence, but you could also make a trade. Listen, you trade down slightly. You don't go out of the top 10 picks. You trade your pick away. You trade your pick away for number 1. You get a good player and a lower draft pick.
Like P-Well from Oregon, the tackle.
You bring somebody in, and the thing is, you got Gardner Minshew. Listen, Jake Luton, terrible behind him.
Don't even bring him up. He's not even in this conversation. If Gardner Minshew actually gets put in a spot where he has a solid offensive line and solid weapons.
DJ Chark, solid weapon.
I'm talking about let's put him on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Well, I mean, the offensive line there, running-wise, is awful. Yeah, but passing-wise, not terrible.
If you slide him into the Indianapolis Colts.
He'll have a game for you. T.Y. Hilton would.
He could take that team to the AFC Championship, in my opinion. I like Gardner Minshew a lot, but that's not even about what this topic is. It's about the rookie quarterbacks coming in, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. So
you can't pass on a guy like Trevor Lawrence, but you can trade out of it.
Number 1.
That's just how I feel.
But number 1 though is for sure Trevor, and we admit that. I could still make the case that I would still like to build my franchise because that was what the question was. The question was who we want to build a franchise around, and I picked Justin Fields because of what I saw out of Lamar Jackson.
Listen, and the thing is, don't forget, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, both Lawrence. Athletic. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't look fast, but his legs are so long. Yeah, he's so fast.
Yeah,
it's beyond me. I don't know how he does it game in, game out, but he runs. He showed it in the college football semi-final last year against Ohio State that he could run the ball. And I think that was... I didn't look at that when I first came on with John and Sam. But looking back on it now, he was athletic last year. He's very athletic this year. He showed it in the ACC championship against Notre Dame. He handled Notre Dame. He's a good player, and he's definitely the best quarterback coming out by far. And you can't pass on a guy like Trevor Lawrence, but it's just I just don't think Jacksonville, needs to move away from Gardner yet. But he does have trade value, so you could always trade Gardner. So but I just don't like the thought. Like Trevor Lawrence is amazing, but
Trevor Lawrence is a clear upgrade though.
Yeah, for sure. But
because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Gardner doesn't have the strongest arm, and this is how you got to evaluate. So, let's say that Trevor and Gardner make the same exact decisions on the football field, but Trevor can sling that thing 75 yards. Gardner can throw that thing 55. Who you take every single time?
You take Trevor.
You take the guy with the stronger arm because he's gonna clearly always have the higher ceiling.
And Trevor's more athletic too.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Gardner Minshew was a 6th-round pick for a reason.
Yeah. But listen to yourself. He was a 6th-round pick.
And
he's a good ball player.
Yes.
He's a good ball player.
He's going to be in the league for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, he'll probably end up being a career backup.
He might honestly be the guy that really helps to teach Trevor the NFL side of football because he's a leader. He's a real leader, and I like him a lot.
But if Jacksonville does want to get something out of him, they'd have to trade him sooner rather than later.
Okay. Well, so kind of the last thing, and I didn't really bring it up to you, but I'm kind of intrigued to hear your thoughts on it. NFL season is wrapping up. Week 17 is coming up this weekend. Playoffs are going to be starting. I want to hear I wouldn't even say early predictions. I want to hear your playoff predictions for the AFC, the NFC, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to have you on before the Super Bowl. So I want to hear your playoff predictions for the AFC and NFC, and who you think is going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, AFC, it's a 4-way breakup right now, and honestly, 4 teams. 4 teams. 3 can get in, 1 can be out, and it is between 4 teams. Ravens are in. There's no doubt about it. I don't know why they're in the question. People talk about it, but they're in. I think the Dolphins could possibly be out.
They're in.
I don't know. They play the Bills next week. That's a big game.
They win and they're in, though.
They win, they're in, yeah. Cleveland, this is a must-win. If they don't win, they're in. And that's a shame because I think that Cleveland team is good. Very, very, very good. I think they are. Myles Garrett has really helped that defense out this year coming back, and I don't want to see them miss it. Even though I'm a Steelers fan, I don't want to see them miss it because I have a love for the Browns, even though a lot of people hate me for it.
Yeah.
And it's just, the Ravens are definitely in, though. Miami, it's up for grabs. And then the Colts. The Colts are the last question mark. And I think the Colts, they're probably the best out of those 4 teams. Genuinely how I feel. I think the Colts are definitely the best out of those 4 teams because Phillip Rivers has played a great season.
I think they're also the most inconsistent, though, too.
They are, but the thing is, you saw it on that last drive. Obviously they didn't get a touchdown. They didn't win the ball game against Pittsburgh, but they can toss it out of the backfield like nobody's business.
They can.
Nyheim Hines can catch everything out of the backfield that you throw at him. You can throw the kitchen sink at him, and he'd catch it. And, I think that's what we're going to go with here. And when it comes down to the playoffs, who's going to win the AFC, there's 3 teams. It's the Steelers, which is last in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, that's...
The Bills at 2, and then the Chiefs for the repeat. But those 3 teams are just, I think they're above everyone else right now, even though the Steelers have had some off weeks. You know what I mean? And then in the NFC, I just don't think anybody can beat the Packers. They showed off against the Titans. That defense looked good.
So, if you had to pick who's going to be in the Super Bowl, on the NFC side, you clearly picked the Packers.
For sure.
Who you think is going to face them in the Super Bowl?
The Bills. I really think the Bills are going to come out.
We are on the exact same
I think the
page.
Bills are going to come out, and I think they're going to make a run, and I think they could beat. Listen, Josh Allen has upped his game, and I just don't see how he's going to lose.
Massively.
I don't see how he's going to lose because he's a competitor, and after the game he had against the Patriots, obviously it's the Patriots right now. They're not looking good, but he's a good ball player, and I just don't see how he's going to lose it. I think he's going to take him all the way. It's going to be a tough game against the Packers, but I think that's going to be your Super Bowl winner in the Bills.
Wow.
Yeah, hey, listen, I get that Aaron Rodgers is amazing.
I think the Bills can go to the Super Bowl as well. I don't really have as many question marks on the Bills as a team than I do as the Chiefs because the Chiefs have seemed very disinterested almost every single week, but they're still winning games.
They've hit a wall. And the thing is that the Steelers did the same thing.
Just
the Steelers
just waiting for the playoffs at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're slowing down, obviously. Against the Falcons, they didn't look good at all. The Falcons aren't a bad team, though.
No, but...
Listen, the Falcons can put up points,
bad, though. Oh, it's frustrating. One thing I will say, Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, should be the first coordinator that gets any looks, other than maybe Robert Saleh. Those are the 2 guys. Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll are the 2 coordinators that should get the most head coaching looks this offseason. And also Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs. I can't disrespect.
He's number 1.
Bieniemy's number 1 because he's that offensive guy that should have probably got one last year.
Yeah.
But I would say Eric Bieniemy, and then tied for second place is Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. And then Brian Daboll, because Brian Daboll's going to be successful wherever he goes. He's a protege of Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. He's going to be a good head coach somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm excited for what the rest of the NFL season has to play out. There's some NBA stuff. Maybe we can get you on another episode and talk about some of that. But, it's been a fun one. I appreciate you coming on and, discussing stuff with me. And, hope everybody enjoyed this episode. If you did, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and like this video. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, review, do what you got to do. Make sure you share it with a friend, do whatever. This is how we're going to grow. I appreciate every single one of you. Love y'all. Peace. And we'll talk to you later. Have a good week.